Hey everyone, and welcome to the Book Barn. We have another special guest with us today.
Yes, we do. Our very good friend, Stacy.
So welcome, Stacy.
Thank you.
Yeah, she is part of our mastermind group or our in-person book club.
Yes.
And we have lots of fun. We were just talking about we needed to have some kind of a theme night with book club. And Stacy, what did you say?
I said we need a pajama night.
We do. I would totally wear my jammies.
Soon.
So today we are talking about a new release.
Very new.
And it is by an author that is a favorite of Lainey's.
He loves me. He gives me a birthday present almost every September.
I'm Laisha.
And I'm Lainey.
And I'm Stacy.
And let's talk books.
Okay, Stacy. How many years have you been a teacher?
36 years in elementary education.
So this is what I remember. I was a newbie at teaching.
Yeah.
And you were the first person that kind of watched over me while I was doing my practicum. And I just remember loving you. And it was a great experience.
We were such good friends. I have fond memories of when we were both very young and you were beginning your teaching career at St. Andrews, and we just had a blast teaching together.
It was so much fun.
And our kids grew up together. That was fun, raising kids together, going through pregnancies together.
I think the whole school was pregnant at one time.
I think so, too.
We just really were.
Had a box of maternity clothes we passed down the hall.
Yep. We said there's something in the water. So we have a couple other questions for you. Do you have a favorite children's book?
So many to choose from. Something I always love is Where the Wild Things Are.
Oh, that's a good one.
I read that to my children, and I used to read it yearly when I taught in the regular classroom. I don't get to read as much to kids anymore in my new position, but I used to always use that book.
How about yourself? Do you have a favorite book? Just your own?
I love anything by Pat Conroy, but the first book that I read of his is called The Lords of Discipline, which sounds really heavy. And I guess it's a heavy subject matter, but he's a great author. He's from kind of like South Carolina, and so a lot of his books have that kind of theme in it. But The Lords of Discipline is a great book. It's about racism in a military institute in the 60s. It's so good.
I have never read that author.
Me either.
That sounds really interesting.
Is it check it out?
Historic fiction, or is it, what is it? What genre?
It's fiction, but I think it's based on history. If you saw The Prince of the Tides with Barbara Streisand and Nick Nolte, he wrote that book.
Okay.
The Great Santini. A lot of his books have been made into movies.
Okay. How about some rapid fire? Are you a tea drinker or coffee?
Coffee, but today I had tea because I was cold.
It was cold. Dogs or cats?
I'm a cat lover. I just had a bad experience with a dog, so I definitely adore my cats all the more.
Do you have a dog? I thought you have a dog.
I do. But my dog, it's actually my husband's dog, is smaller than my cat. She weighs about 5 pounds. Her name is Dottie Dog. She's very sweet. She's teeny, teeny, tiny. I have to give a shout out to my 2 cats, though, because I love them so much. Sebastian and Gracie, they're the best.
Meow.
Okay. And we should do one more question. Tell me one thing about your grandson.
Oh, just one? He's just the cutest, and he's coming up to stay with me next weekend for New Wall. I can't wait. Can I reveal he's going to be Benny the Pooh in the kitty parade? I'm so excited. Lots of pictures, I'm sure.
And his name's Benny, so that's perfect.
Yes, perfect.
Benny the Pooh.
That is adorable.
So we are excited to discuss this month's pick, Counting Miracles by Nicholas Sparks.
So Nicholas Sparks was born in December of 1965, actually December 31st.
Yes.
The last day of the year. In 1965, and in 1984, he graduated as valedictorian of his class, and he wrote his first never-published novel, The Passing, in 1985.
Wow.
Isn't
Yes.
that crazy?
So he would have been, what, 19?
Yeah.
Yes. So the truth is, I really thought I had read all of his books. I really did. And then I got to looking through some information about him. He has written 2 nonfiction books. I've not read either one of them. One of them is called Wakini, A Lakota Journey to Happiness and Self-Understanding. He put that one out the year I graduated high school in 1990. So I may have to
You'll have to
get
go
me
check
a
that.
copy.
Yeah. Stacy, have you read very many of his books?
I have to be very honest. No. When Lainey was very excited about introducing me to this book and bringing it up for book club, I was like, it's going to be like a Harlequin romance. And it's not.
No.
How about you? Have you read many?
No, not very many. I've read a few. One that I really remember is Every Breath, I think is the title. But it was about that mailbox, and people would write letters and leave. Actually, I think it's a real mailbox.
On a beach.
Yes. Kindred Spirits, I think, was what the actual place is. And then he even set up a website where people would go and write letters. I went on the website to see it's still up, and you can read letters that people just write in to
my
it. So you can
goodness.
write a letter anonymously, put it out there, and you can read these letters from people. So that's one that I have read.
Very good.
And Counting Miracles.
I think I have read all of them except for the nonfiction. My favorites would probably be, I loved A Walk to Remember. I can't believe you haven't read that one.
I'm a movie person,
So you've watched the movie.
but you're converting me.
Okay, very good.
And what's the one with
The Notebook.
The Notebook?
Yeah.
That is used to be my daughter's favorite movie. Nights in Rodanthe.
It's good,
I love
too.
that movie.
Most of his books are made into movies because they're so good.
They are.
So on the Walk to Remember, his sister had died of cancer, and that was his inspiration for that book. I like them all. The Longest Ride. I mean, there's just so many. I know why I like Nicholas Sparks.
Why?
He really does have kind of a pattern that he follows. A lot of times he'll have older couples and their love story, and younger couples and their love stories.
Oh, okay.
And then those stories usually in some way cross. And I think I love those older love stories just as much as I love the younger ones. But I think that's why I like him so much.
Yeah.
He just always tugs at my heartstrings.
He does definitely create very believable characters.
Absolutely.
I mean, I remember when for example, the Every Breath, just go back to that because I can remember it clearly. But I kept thinking, I know these people, or, I should know them. They felt very real. And I actually thought maybe it was a real story, but it was just inspired by the Kindred Spirits. But he's very good at making very believable characters.
I think you said, Stacy, when we were reading the book, I think you said, I can picture Tanner in my head, which is a character of the book we're talking about today.
Yes, I could. It was a beautiful picture. Very handsome man in that picture.
Nice.
So let's talk about Tanner.
Let's do.
Okay. So he had a young single mother who died shortly after his birth. And so he was raised by his grandparents, and he was in the military, and he was deeply affected by his experiences there. And we find out that he had lost 23 friends after they left the service.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was
Heartbreaking.
heartbreaking. Yeah.
And we know that those things really do happen.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's not good. Had a best friend named Glenn. And Glenn basically thought Tanner was postponing his happiness.
Well, he just felt like he was delaying his life.
Delaying his life.
Yeah. Like living life to the fullest.
And he kind of was. He kept going overseas and doing these jobs and...
Not putting down roots and...
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of shutting himself off emotionally.
Yeah.
And then Tanner's journey, he goes to find his biological father, and he's in this town, and he's at was it a bar?
Yes.
I think it was a bar.
Yes.
And he gets his Shelby car backed into by this young girl. I felt that because I was like, oh, new car.
And that was Casey. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He drives Casey home and meets Caitlin, Casey's mom. And there's a little bit of a spark there. I really didn't care for Casey in the beginning.
Me
Did you?
neither.
I thought she was a typical
Teen, yeah.
teen
Right.
turning into a young adult.
Yeah, but yeah, she was,
Very egocentric.
yeah.
So what about Caitlin?
Yeah, Caitlin. She's portrayed as this beautiful divorced woman. She's a doctor. Casey says that her mother has forgotten how to be happy.
I understand. Yeah, it's hard after you've been divorced to be happy.
What do you think, Lainey?
I could tell that she was a strong woman. I mean, she's a doctor, so she's well educated. I thought she handled being a single mom well.
Yeah. You know, she volunteered and she had some things that I really was impressed by her because she did house calls as a doctor because she wanted to,
Right.
you know, reach out to those people that she knew wouldn't be coming into a clinic or getting the care that she felt like they needed. And so she did those house calls and that was pretty impressive. And, you know, so she did have some good things going on.
That stuff doesn't happen anymore.
Yes, exactly. They don't travel around with their little bags anymore, do they?
No, they do not. At least they don't come to my house. So Jasper.
Yes, he was my favorite.
Me too. I love
He
Jasper.
was a sweet character,
He
wasn't he?
was. Yeah.
So sweet. Yes. And he had a dog named Arlo. Was it Arlo? Yeah,
Yep.
Arlo. And he was named after Arlo Guthrie, which was a singer. You know, I had to go look that up.
That's
Have
Lainey
you-
for you.
His museum is downtown Tulsa.
Oh, really?
No
There's
kidding.
an Arlo Guthrie museum. He's a folk singer, right?
He's a singer.
Yeah.
I looked at what he looked like anyway because I wanted to see what he looked like.
I think he was like in the 60s, right?
Okay. So anyway, he has a dog, but you know, his entire family is no longer with him. It was just a heartbreaking story.
Yeah, very much.
Definitely.
I thought that his father's teaching about work ethic and faith, it just added so much to Jasper's character and the whole story. And the miracle of fish falling from the sky and the cabin's backstory, I just thought that those were really fascinating.
Yeah, I did too. Did you pick a word that you thought kind of represented the whole book?
This is something we do, Stacy. We pick us a word.
Okay.
So, well, it was really pretty hard for me because there were a lot of different things kind of covered in this book, but I'm going to say inspiring.
Ooh.
And I chose that because really I felt like everything we heard about Jasper's father was inspirational. Jasper's memories of his family and the love that he had for his dear Audrey and their children. And Caitlin's father's thoughts about Mondays. I loved those. And of course, Caitlin's volunteering and that she made the house calls. I felt inspired by so much. So inspiring. That was my word.
That's a good word. Can you think of a word, Stacy?
I have to go with surprising because I was not excited to read this book. And by the end, I couldn't put it down. I really got involved in the storyline and the characters, and I was pleasantly surprised.
Good. I'm so glad you feel that way.
Me too.
But you guys always pick out great books every month. I am happy with what we read.
Well,
so good job,
Makes me
ladies.
happy. Whoop, whoop.
All right, Lainey, what's your word?
So my word is faith. Jasper was a man of faith, but he felt God had turned his back on him. He stopped reading his Bible. He stopped praying. And I was so glad that in the end he got a special blessing. I don't think we talked about the fact that Jasper had went through a major fire and that he had been burned and that he dealt with psoriasis and all kinds of medical issues. Did we talk about that?
No, we haven't yet. And goodness, I felt all of those things. I mean,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
you knew the poor guy was in so much pain and he still just kept going. after losing his entire family.
So like you said, inspiring. You're right.
Yes, his story was just very inspirational. So we need to add our spoiler alert.
If you plan to read Counting Miracles, press stop.
I like the parallels between Jasper's life and the story of Job in the Bible, and how Job was covered with boils and was blessed with a second family. I loved that, and I love that Jasper is going to have a second chance to another family. I love that.
Yeah,
I agree. So, Laisha, did you pick a paragraph to read?
I did. In chapter 4, and it's about Monday. So Caitlin is telling Tanner about her volunteering at like a soup kitchen on Mondays, and he asks her what made her decide to do that. And here was her reply. "My dad," she said simply. "He always had this thing about Mondays. When we were little, we'd be at the breakfast table, and he'd walk in to pour himself a cup of coffee and say, 'I was just thinking that Monday is the perfect day to start being the best version of yourself, since you've got 6 more days to practice.' Or, 'Every week should begin with generosity, don't you think? Wouldn't the world be a better place?' My brother and sister and I would just roll our eyes at each other, but over time, I guess his attitude sank in, at least with me. He always walked the walk. He's a dentist, and the first thing he did when he set up his practice was to reserve Monday mornings for patients who couldn't afford to pay. It's all his fault."
Oh,
Wow.
So I love that. I love those thoughts about
Perfect
Mondays.
paragraph. That was a good one.
So, Lainey, what is your paragraph?
My paragraph is on page 178. When he concentrated, it seemed as though he was able to recall most of their lives together. He remembered the way the children would crowd around him on the porch and watch with fascination as he whittled pirates and ballerinas or animals from their favorite picture books. He could see their gap-toothed smiles as they posed for school photos. He summoned up memories of the family reading the Bible together every Wednesday and Sunday evening, always his favorite nights of the week. He thought briefly about their teenage years, that turbulent period on the verge of adulthood. Rules were sometimes broken, bedrooms were often messy, and the boys ate so much that Jasper sometimes opened the cupboards only to find most of the food gone. He remembered first loves, David, who'd fallen for Monica at sleepaway camp in Pinehurst, only to have his heart broken. I didn't finish it, but I thought that was the perfect place to stop. Because David is such an important character that we really don't hear a whole lot about.
Oh, I know.
Right.
I know. Everything about Jasper and his family was heartbreaking. And David's story was too.
I agree.
So back to Tanner and Caitlin.
Yes.
Okay, so they certainly had some sparks flying.
Let's talk about their dates.
Yeah, they had a first date.
To the zoo.
Yeah, it was kind of a fun outing with Mitch, with
Yes.
Caitlin's son. Yep. And then Caitlin and Tanner both volunteered at Our Daily Bread, which was the kitchen that she was telling about. And Caitlin said that they serve 20,000 meals a year.
We know of a kitchen like that in Wichita. It's called the Lord's Diner. And I just looked up on their website today, and they have given away 5,500,000 meals
Since they've opened.
since they've opened.
That's amazing.
That is amazing.
We have cuff dinners in Independence once a week. The churches all volunteer and serve dinner to people that either have trouble with, getting food, or just kind of like as a fellowship, so people can get together and eat together. And I think it's a beautiful idea.
Yeah.
Stacy, I didn't even know they did that. That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Where's that held at?
I think lately it's, I want to say the Episcopal Church, but I'm not 100% on that, but I think so.
It's nice that you can see those little small acts of kindness kind of ripple through the community. Yeah.
So they did the zoo. They did the kitchen together.
Yep. And they had game night.
Ooh, it was Jenga. Yes.
I think that's the night that Tanner gained the trust of Casey.
Probably.
You know?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And then Tanner planned the perfect dinner date.
Okay, so I do want to talk about Casey helping her mom get ready for that date. The girl, Casey, had said to her mother that her hair was very Melrose Place. Stacy, that made me think of you.
Oh, no.
Because the Melrose Place main character that I remember is that Jane Mancini. Do you remember her?
Maybe.
Stacy, you rocked that haircut in the 90s. So when they said that, I was like, oh, but Stacy looks so good in that haircut.
I'm going to have to go rewatch. I just remember, oh my gosh, Grant Show was so very handsome. I enjoyed that quite a bit.
Do you remember your haircut that she's referring to?
You know what? I have had so many haircuts in my life.
It was very short, very short.
Okay, I remember.
And it was cute.
There was a Russian figure skater, and I remember videotaping her on TV and taking it to my hairdresser at the time to cut my hair just like her.
Nice.
And here I thought you got your inspiration from Melrose Place.
And that too, I'm sure.
Well, I'm sure you were adorable, no matter where it came from.
That's sweet.
What a sweet moment, though, between the daughter, Casey, and Caitlin.
Yeah.
You know, her fixing her mother's hair, fixing her makeup, helping her to look beautiful.
Yeah,
Adorable.
That was
It
very
is
nice.
kind.
Yeah. And so about this date that he had planned, it was at a mountain home with fire and music. Or if that was too much for Caitlin, he'd also made reservations at a restaurant and a limo to get them there.
With champagne and M&Ms.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
I was like Caitlin. I was like, oh, he's going to pop out strawberries now. But the M&Ms were that was a nice twist.
That was cute.
I like that.
A nice pairing, right?
That's right.
So then the restaurant catered,
Yeah. They did stay in the mountain home.
and we
Yeah.
thought it was all going very nicely.
Yeah.
Sparks flying.
Yeah, got a little spicy.
It got real spicy. But that's the beauty of a good romance novel, right?
Yeah.
That's right. But then it wasn't good.
Yeah. It went south real quick, didn't it?
It did.
Yeah. It was sad because he really had put so much thought into the date. You know, the location was beautiful. He kept her feelings. You know, he really took that into consideration about this might be too much, so we could go to the restaurant. And he arranged an out-of-town restaurant.
As former divorcee dating, I appreciated that. I never wanted to go on dates in Independence.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because everybody knew, everybody was looking at you.
Lots of talk in a small town.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So he did great with that. And then as they kept talking,
Well, it wasn't a long-term thing that he was planning.
no, he wasn't.
And I could see how that would make a woman feel, maybe, do you think she felt used? Yeah.
Disposable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And then he was like clueless. He didn't understand why she was
Right.
upset. I think he
Figured it out.
yeah, he thought a lot about it. He did, and then he called his friend to talk him through it, and he was kind of expecting him to just side with him or say yeah, you know, but he sided with Caitlin.
Absolutely.
I think it goes back to that he wasn't really open with his feelings and didn't want to let his emotions get the best of him.
Yeah.
Kind of walled himself off.
I
But
agree.
it gets better.
It does.
It does get
Yes.
better. Yeah.
So let's talk about the legends of the white deer. They talk about this throughout the story. You just sent me a video of white deer from somewhere.
Oh, yeah, where was that?
I don't know.
but it was a whole family of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it was right after we read the book, and it was
Wow.
in Bass Pro Shops was the ones who shared it, and it was a whole
Okay.
family of white deer. There was a buck and a doe and like triplets, but there was one little one that wasn't totally white.
Leisha, if I had read that book and then I walked out at my door and saw a white deer, I would
Yeah.
thank God, what are you telling me?
Yeah.
Who's needing to let me know something?
Yeah. Well, Jasper definitely had a connection with that deer.
Yes.
Yeah, he was ready to do anything to save that deer. And I was so terrified for Jasper.
I was terrified for Arlo, too. I really didn't think Arlo was going to make it.
Yeah.
Oh, that would have been heartbreaking if Arlo
I
had died.
I was totally prepared for that.
So then we have to talk about those little knuckleheads,
The Littleton boys.
Yes. Well,
They were awful.
they were awful. They wanted a trophy. They wanted to kill the deer.
Yeah, they were poachers in the absolute worst way.
And then to leave Jasper to die, basically, they would have.
Heartless.
Yes.
Yeah. I really did feel like they were going to hurt him, at which leaving him there in his condition was hurting him. I didn't know whether Jasper was going to make it or not.
I
Really.
didn't either.
Yeah.
They were just awful, awful kids.
And Arlo was the hero.
He was.
Yes.
And what about reading the chapter in this book about Hurricane Helene?
Oh, my word. And for that just happening in real life.
Exactly.
Oh, my goodness.
Timing.
Yeah,
I
that
have
was something.
family there.
Oh, you
my
do?
cousin and his wife, they lived there in Asheville. And we had been contacting them to make sure they were safe. But I don't know how Sparks, I guess he looked ahead to see. I don't know how
Yeah.
that happened.
Yeah, I don't either.
Talk about timing.
Yeah, that was quite a coincidence.
So to all those people, we're thinking about you.
Yeah.
That's tough.
It is.
Okay, so the climax of the story is the intertwining of fates, Jasper and Tanner. When Tanner finds Jasper and Arlo leads him to help him, goodness, that was such a powerful moment. And
It
I cried.
was.
I cried.
It was.
I did too.
Lainey said she didn't know if she actually shed
I was
tears.
very
but-
sad, but I don't know that I actually cried.
Yeah. Well, that was like happy cry because he's finding him and saving him.
And when he says, "You found me," I think that might have actually been in the hospital afterwards, but it just really hit me. Like, he really did. He found his grandpa.
I loved the ending. I loved how they figured out that they were related. It was a grandpa. And I got the feeling that, well, I mean, it tells you Tanner is going to stick around and help take care of him. And I just got the feeling they were going to, happily ever after,
Yeah.
a beautiful family moment. Hopefully. We hope he marries Caitlin and has
kind of looked
another
like it was
family.
going that way, right?
It did.
So I loved the book. I thought it was great. And I cried in multiple places at different times when he was speaking of his family, about his family. And goodness, Jasper's whole story was just,
As you
right
said,
in the feels.
it's inspiring.
Yeah. Now, I will say that I did think that kind of the first half of the book, I enjoyed it all, but it was pretty slow.
You told me that, and I was like, "What?"
You didn't think it was? You
I
feel
didn't.
like?
I was
How about you,
in it.
Stacy?
I did it first. And I'm terrible. I listen and read the books. I sometimes gloss over parts. So I'm like, man, this is kind of boring. Let's get to the meat of the story. And I think I did that in a few places.
Yeah, the first part, I stayed with it. I mean, like, it still kept me engaged. It was just slower.
It was a slow burn.
Yeah, it was a slow burn. I felt like I could set it down and then come back to it. And I still wanted to keep going. But boy, we hit about that halfway point, I think. And things started to happen pretty quickly. And I was always seriously just terrified for Jasper every time. When he went out and was gathering up the corn and putting out the deer repellent. And I'm just like, he's lost his mind. Poor guy. But it just became so fast. I felt like towards the end, you just wanted to keep going.
The last hour of the book I listened to on Audible. I woke up one morning early and I couldn't go back to sleep. So I just thought, you know what? I'm going to finish this today. And I texted Lainey at like 6:30 in the morning. I finished.
Yeah, and I was like, "Did you stay up all night?"
But yeah, I was just so drawn in by that point. I just had to finish it and find out what happened.
In a previous episode, you had mentioned that your favorite book is the one that you just finished.
Yes. Yep.
That's the way I felt about this book. Like right now, I'm feeling like this might be one of my favorite Nicholas Sparks books. And you know, I love all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I loved it. I really did.
I'm ready for the next book. What is it?
Ooh, next one's a Christmas book.
Oh, that's right. I can't wait.
Gotta
Well, we
get
will
ready.
put all the details on our Facebook group. So for those of you who are following along with our book club reads, we will announce that there. And so we thank you to all of our book friends for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this discussion about counting miracles. If you've read the book, we would love to hear your thoughts. What moments stood out to you?
Let us know.
Until next time, we hope you keep reading, keep counting your own miracles, and be inspired. I'm Laisha.
I'm Lainey.
And I'm Stacy.
And keep those bookmarks busy.